Welcome to this edition of the Million Dollar Mastermind podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. As you're growing now, what are the things, what do you think is going to allow you, if anything, to continue to move up and expand?
I think just consistency. You said it earlier. I mean, at the end of the day, I think the cream always rises to the top. It's just showing up every day and just having a track record and having staying power. I really think that's that part, and mix that with the fact that there's two people that have similar amounts of consistency. Right now, my business partner is doing something else, right? He's coaching, he's making revenue, whatever, redesigning the business. So I think it's that. And I also think it's a balance of being humble enough to admit what you suck at, but also confident enough to say, I'm really good at this. I think that's a very unique skill that takes a long time to hone. Yeah. And that's something we've been working on for a long time.
Now, do you have other, how's it gone in, have you had to expand your staff dramatically to keep up with all of these other podcasts?
Right now, the way it worked was when we started growing that side of things, that's when I also started delegating our content. So before that, I did all the audio editing, I did all the video editing. And I was like, well, before I'm going to bring somebody on to do that, I have to find a way to make money in that. Yeah. So no, we have a team of 4, soon to be 5 or 6, but we've had that size team for the last like 2.5 years. So no, we've just, again, we rely a lot on our systems. We rely a lot on having tight systems that allow the human to do what they should do, but they know exactly what's happening next. And we've relied a lot on that.
Where do you see the big opportunity is with, for yourself with coaching? And is it covering the same kinds of things? You know, they had a thing they used to say about psychiatry, that like there's 426 versions of psychiatry and none of them work. Okay. None of them really work. But what does work is the fact that you go in and for an hour, somebody will listen to you. And the fact that somebody will listen to you and take what you say seriously, that came down to whatever your method of psychology was, a school of thought, that seemed to be the difference maker, that people felt like somebody was listening to them, you know. And also the mark of insanity, and I think this kind of ties in with an entrepreneur. The mark of insanity is where you feel like you're out of control. You know, life is just going, I just don't know what's going to happening to me ever. You know, that's when you're going insane. You're headed for a breakdown. You know, that's a sign you're headed for a breakdown. And a breakdown is loss of control. So when you're at that point, you've got to have some degree of that to be reaching out for a life coach. It doesn't have to be that dramatic, but you can kind of see it going that way, that I need some reinforcement. I need some fresh ideas. I need a different perspective. And you can say that I'll take it from 2 different angles. You can say it from 2. One thing is that entrepreneurs are to some degree manic depressive, you know, to one, you know, because manic depressive, you get super excited about things and then you get super depressed, you know, and you swing. Because if you can't get super excited about anything, you're not going to be able to get anybody else super excited about the idea. So you have to have, and then when things go wrong, it's like, you know, like, and why that's important and not necessarily a negative, unless you wind up killing people, is the fact that you're impatient. You know, when things go wrong, people don't perform the way they do. You're like, it's not like, well, maybe tomorrow he'll do it or whatever. No, it's like, you know, I got a podcast coming. I've got deadline. I got people counting on me. You know, I've got miles to go and appointments to keep, and that ain't going to happen anymore, you know. And so those are the entrepreneurial people. So one reason to have some sanity in there, to have an outside party, is, you could say, add some value. And the other thing is, in every profession where you have elite performers, they all have coaches. You know, athletes, you know, the top, even the Tiger Woods, whoever they are, they have the coaches. And even CEOs have coaches now, you know. So there's a validity there, but that doesn't mean everybody's doing coaching is worth a crap. Where I have a problem is the people who go to a 6-week life coach thing. And now I am, you know, before that I was, delivered papers, and now, or whatever, but now I'm going to be a life coach. It's like, okay, but just make sure people know what your background is, you know, and don't expect that certificate that they, you know. Now, there's value in all that. I understand there's value in all that, but not a whole lot, you know, as opposed to someone who's been there, done that, made, you know, put themselves out in the firing line and kind of overcome it, and then made things happen on their own to a high level. And so how do you see the potential of the coaching business for yourself? Have you been encouraged as you got into it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, even to your point, like, mindset coaching for many of us only gets you so far. Even that label, it might suggest, you know, low level. But I think once you start talking about peak performance, you start talking about productivity, you start talking about business. I think that's the interesting thing is, as I've grown as a human, the style of coaching and what I'm capable of coaching on has also changed. So I think at the end of the day, to your point, as long as I keep learning life's lessons and I keep getting better and I keep trying to put myself steps ahead of the people I'm helping, I'm very, very excited about that. And I think the other thing too is, the weird thing about success is when you get successful, it's easier to get success. So our podcast business has grown way more in the last 6 months because we have 1,300 episodes, right? Yeah. So I have a very, very good feeling about the future, just because we're just going to keep recording episodes. And I think that helps, obviously, with credibility and the value I can add.
And give them the name of that podcast again.
Next Level University.
Yeah. And if people want to find you, where do they go?
Just search Next Level University online. We're on all the podcast platforms. We're on YouTube, all of our episodes. So, yep, an episode every day in your pocket for free.
And how long are those episodes?
Usually 20 to 30 minutes. We try to, you said this earlier, bite size. We try to make them as bite size as we can, because we know you don't want to spend hours listening, most likely.
And plus, you can cover the subject too. You know, that you can. You know, you can overfeed a horse, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think we've all been in meetings where it's supposed to be a 3-day event. And the first 30 minutes, people, you can see the whole room. They're so excited. They're all ready to run out and get back home and get back to work. And it's like, you're sitting up there wishing you could let them go. But you've got all these other speakers lined up. It's like, okay. But a lot of people are usually, and maybe you could speak to this, most people are really not that far away from what they're looking for, you know, and, you know, the missing pieces to be more productive. And a lot of times they know the answer, but they're not sure. And having someone who understands where they are and who will listen to, they can bounce it off of, is just being able to say it out loud to someone who will give them decent feedback. They kind of can hear as they're talking whether or not that they're on the right track or not. Do you find that?
Sometimes you got to check your spelling. There's certain words out there that we kind of know how to spell, but we always check before we send it. I think, to your point, I think, a lot of us do have an idea of what to do. The hardest thing, though, and I'm sure you could speak to this, Larry, the hardest thing to account for is time. You don't know whether a habit is a good habit or a bad habit, usually, until you you're, a year, 2 years, 5 years down the line. So it's that time is the hardest thing to account for. And if you can go to somebody who says, hey, what have you done for the last 5 years? That's where things I think can get really, really powerful.
Yeah. Cause I mean, there's certain things you can micromanage, but we can say to ourselves what things have been for the last 5 years. If you've been static in what you're doing for the last 5 years, and you know what the results are from that, chances are the next 5 years are going to be exactly the same unless you change something.
Most likely.
So it comes down to, are you happy about the way things are going and the results you're getting, or would you like to pick it up a notch?
Yeah.
And chances are, what I've found is if people want to pick it up a notch, they've got the capacity to pick it up a notch. Now, what the question is, do they have the capacity and they want it bad enough to work for it or not? And the only way to do that is to go for it. Go for it and see if it's rewarding enough. The trade-off of a little bit more focus, a little bit more energy, and the results that come from it. But in terms of, can they do it? If they want to do it, they probably can.
Yeah.
And so do you want to, I'm going to give you a final word to wrap this up and leave people with, Kevin. So what would you say is a takeaway for people that have been listening to this and a thought you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference between the person you are today and the person you ultimately want to be is what you do every day. So if you want a lot more out of life eventually, try to do a little bit more every single day. That little bit adds up a lot. And again, in 5 years, you can have a lot more than you do today if you just start doing a little bit more on the day to day.
Absolutely. Well, wish you the best, Kevin. Thanks for your time. And do you have any last questions that you want to ask? Or did we do it?
I think we did it, my friend. I appreciate you.
All right. Thanks very much. Good luck. Take care.
Thank you, buddy.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Million Dollar Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at weidelonwinning.com. Thanks for listening.